Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video about The Witcher. With the release of the new Witcher 4 trailer, it has revived the YouTube Witcher discussions and brought the Witcher games back into the limelight. Though I doubt the Witcher 4 trailer has created any new Witcher fans, it has got all the old fans of The Witcher 3 thinking about The Witcher again, as well as hopefully waking up the people who have had The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, and their Steam wishlist for years to actually pick up and play the game for the first time. What I mean is people are going to be flocking back to the original games and books before the fourth installment of the franchise is finished and on the market. I found myself looking backwards in the Witcher franchise, not because of the trailer, but rather because I was given some Witcher comic books for Christmas. After receiving them, I realized that it is difficult to find a chronological order for these Witcher comic books and how they fit into the Witcher storyline. I spent hours digging through wikis and Reddit discussions, as well as internet rabbit holes, to create an ultimate Witcher chronological order. Now, viewer, if you undertake this mammoth task as a Witcher fan to undergo this reading in plain chronological order, you will be one of the few who has ever consumed this much Witcher content. Because the games are much more popular than the books, but with the comics, almost no one has read them. Many of the comics don't even have discussions about them in the darkest corners of the internet. So I reserve this list for the brave souls only. I personally have not completed everything on this list either, because I just completed a Witcher run-through not too long ago. I'll probably take a year break and then undertake this reading order later. Before I begin, let me share a few disclaimers. This chronology is best for a reread. If you have never read the Witcher books before, I would recommend doing that normally, because this will mix things up a little too much for a first-time reader. And unless you just want to jump off the deep end, then there is nothing I can do to stop you. Number 2, I had to dig deep on the internet to find a lot of this information, but a lot of this list is easily attainable, and you probably already own more of this list than you think you do. I will be making a list of required purchases, optional purchases, and free links, as well as share the list to make it easy to do yourself. I will also give tutorials on how to find some of the more hidden content that you just didn't know about. Number 3, this does not contain every piece of Witcher content ever, but it does contain most. I have left out all the Netflix stuff, even the Nightmare of the Wolf, which I did enjoy, because those will harm the canon of story. However, I did leave other pieces of content that don't perfectly fit into the canon just for completionist's sake. But with each item on the list, I will reveal the level of canon it is, with the levels being number 1, true canon, number 2, CD Projekt Red canon, which is the studio that made the games, number 3, adapted canon, and number 4, non-canon. Number 4, this is going to be the ultimate Geralt chronology. It does not contain the Witcher 4 trailer. I might explain myself better in a separate video, but I don't like the idea of The Witcher referring to Ciri in The Witcher 4, as it was referring to Geralt in the first 3 games. I also assume if CD Projekt Red will come out with more comics in the future, they will start to be about Ciri. I know Geralt will be in The Witcher 4, but he won't be the title character, so I am leaving out The Witcher 4 trailer in this chronology and just focusing on The Witcher Geralt. Number 5, I have future-proofed this list through upcoming 2025 releases. But an issue with this list is that not everything on it is released. So it might be best to wait to start this chronological order until a few months have passed and some important items are released to the public. Disclaimer number 6, I am not a Witcher lore expert. Please say in the comments if I have made a mistake on this list. Even though I felt like Gandalf checking every source I could find on this list, the only placement I will not take criticism on is the Season of Storms book. I like where I placed it, and I am aware that it is in the wrong chronological spot, but story-wise, I like where I have placed it. Enough of that, let's start this over-cumbersome list. The first item on this list, number 1, is Rogue Mage. Really, just the cutscenes, and this is considered CD Projekt Red canon. Rogue Mage is a Gwent-style single-player mobile game, and it tells the story of a mage creating the first Witcher. This is an optional purchase of around $8. The reason it is optional is because it is not a good game. It has struggled to have more than 30 active players on it since launch. On top of that, it is not free and not worth the $8 unless you are obsessed with a mobile-style Gwent. The good news is, all the cutscenes from the 12-hour game span the massive length of 12 minutes. I have provided a link to a YouTube channel that shows the animated art from the game, and it has a cool narration over the entire story of the game. I recommend using the link, saving time, but if you want to play the whole game, more power to you. The second item on this list, number 2, The Road of No Return. This is a short story, and it is considered canon. This is a short story that the author of the Witcher series, Andrzej Sapkowski, wrote before the Witcher series. He said it wasn't intended to be canon to the Witcher series at first because he had not started writing it yet, but after he created The Witcher, he said it fits in perfectly. It tells a story about Geralt's mother, Vizina. This story was never officially translated to English, but there is a fan translation available that I will link, or you can just easily find it yourself on the internet. And also with this number 2, The Road of No Return, there is an adapted canon bonus content as well you can go with. A classic comic from the 90s adapted this story, and an official English translation of it will be released in March. If you want to go the completionist route and do the bonus content, but if you just want to get through the list quickly, you only have to do the actual fan translation short story. Number 3, Crossroads of Ravens. This is a book that is a part of the real canon. Of course, this book is still waiting for English translation, sadly. It is the newest Witcher book written by Sapkowski, released in November 2024. It is a prequel that tells the story of Geralt's younger years as a Witcher. At least that's what the Polish readers have been telling me on Reddit, because once again, it is not translated to English just yet. Some say the English translation will be released in early 2025, but there is no official date. This is a rough speed bump for us English readers to be stopped in our chronology so early, but what can you do? Despite this, we'll move to step number 4, The Betrayal. This is a comic, and this is only for the Completionist canon. This is another classic comic that is being released to English in March in that classic comic collection. This was a storyline that was discussed with Sapkowski, but was not written by him. It involves the School of the Cat, but because of its origins, it does not fit perfectly into the canon, which is why I have it under Completionist. There is a fan translation available in the meantime that I will add to the links, but once again, this classic comic collection is being released to the public in March with an official English translation. Number 5, now we're to the more familiar books, and we're going to start with, of course, The Last Wish, and this is real canon. While we are here, I will take a pause to say it'll be best to purchase the books in a full set, so that way it's a little bit cheaper, and it will cost you around $50. Or if you have Spotify Premium or some other audiobook app, you can listen to all the books on audiobook if you want to go that route instead. If you remember, the story in The Last Wish really bounces around with short stories, so I'm going to have them in the chronological order of the stories, starting with A Grain of Truth, which is the Beauty and the Beast type story. With this short story in particular, there is bonus content again, in the form of a CD Projekt Red comic book adapting the short story. This CD Projekt Red comic book is another optional purchase of around $10. The short story, The Lesser Evil, the story with Renfri and the Butcher of Blaviken, also has a CD Projekt Red comic, another optional $10 purchase, and a classic comic as well. But once again, all these classic comics are going to be published together in a collection. Number 6, The Witcher Witch's Lament. This is a comic and is part of the CD Projekt Red canon. This story goes after The Lesser Evil, and it's our first full-length comic on the list. So this is how I bought the comic books, and it's these 2 comic library editions that have a collection of Witcher comics. They are about $20 if you get the paperback, $40 if you get like the hardcover collectible editions. However, this might be cheaper if you just buy the digital copies online, but I will leave that choice up to you. This comic can be found in Comic Library Edition number 2. And now, we are going to go back to The Last Wish and continue a few more of these short stories. So, remember, The Last Wish is going to be real canon, and the next short story is going to be The Edge of the World, the story with the Sylvan and Dandelion. This also has a CD Projekt Red comic coming in January, so that is another optional purchase if you'd like to go that route. I personally will be skipping all of these CD Projekt Red adaptations because they intend to make comics for all of these short stories in the future. So I will try to continue to add to this list via like the comment section and update the Google Docs I have shared. But these adaptations are probably coming out pretty quickly, so this will be the first part of my video to become outdated. At least that's my guess. I will not be reading the CDPR adapted comics because it seems like overkill, but they are available if you prefer. The next short story is the eponymous Last Wish, where Geralt meets Yennefer, and there is a classic comic adaptation of that as well. After those short stories, we're going to move to another book, Season of Storms, once again a real book, and this is hard canon. We are going to read this entire book minus the epilogue. This was the 8th book that Sapkowski wrote, but it is a prequel. It goes somewhere in the short stories. I'm going to place it here now that we have met Dandelion in our chronology. When you get to the epilogue, just skip it and leave it for later. And now we have a number 8.5, Fox Children. This is a CD Projekt Red comic, but this is not going to be in that canon. This is going to be an adapted canon. This is a CDPR comic that adapts a small section in the Season of Storms book. This is not a word-for-word retelling of the story, which is why it goes into adapted canon. But it is a full 5-issue comic and could be free if you are following this chronology. One place to find it is the first library edition of comics that I've already mentioned you can buy, but there is a spot you might have it digitally if you have purchased the game Thonebreaker on Steam, which I will talk about in just a minute. You have access to a free version of this comic. Let me show you how to find it. First, go to your game files and go to your local disk. Click on Program Files 86. Click on Steam. Click on Steam Apps. Click on Common. And here is the list of all your games. So go to Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales. Now click on Bonus Content. And then the last one is the Fox Children comic. Click on that, and bang, you own your first Witcher comic. While we are in these files, look around at the other stuff, and you will find the entire Gwent art book as well, which is pretty cool to get background on some of the characters in The Witcher. All right, now we are moving on to number 9. Once again, The Last Wish. We're still continuing here with the short stories, and this is once again a book, and it's a part of the hard canon. I know it feels like we are taking forever to get through the Last Wish book, but this is it. Read A Questioner of Price, The Witcher. This one also has an adapted classic comic called Geralt, but once again, totally optional. And then lastly, The Voice of Reason is the final short story in this book. And The Voice of Reason will definitely feel clunky reading it because it is supposed to be setting up the other short stories when you read the book, how it's supposed to be read. But yeah, we'll just have to deal with that with this chronological order. It'll be okay. Moving on to number 10, The Ballad of Two Wolves. This is a comic, and this is CD Projekt Red canon. This can be found in the library edition number 3, which is not released yet, but it will release in August 2025, or you can buy the comics individually right now outside of the library edition if you would like. I have not read this comic yet because I'm waiting for the library edition, but apparently it can go anywhere in the short stories, so I have it here just to help split up the books. Moving on, number 11, Sword of Destiny. This is a book, and this is a part of the hard canon. Read the first 2 short stories in this book, which are entirely in order, so that makes it easy for us. The Bounds of Reason is the story about the dragon. This one does have a classic comic adaptation, and I promise that's the last time I have to mention that collection, releasing in March. A Shard of Ice will then be read after, and we will take another break for a comic. Number 12, House of Glass comic, and this is CD Projekt Red canon. This, once again, I believe it can go anywhere in the short stories, and you will find it in Library Edition number 1. This has the story of Geralt in a haunted house. Number 13, The Sword of Destiny book. Once again, hard canon. This is going to be the same collection of short stories we were just in. We are now going to finish the short stories in this book. The next story being Eternal Flame, the story of Novigrad and a Doppler. Then we're going to read A Little Sacrifice, a love story with some drowners mixed in. And then number 5, The Sword of Destiny, my personal favorite short story where we meet Child Ciri. Before we finish off this book, we're going to take another detour. Number 14, Reasons of State. This is a comic in the CD Projekt Red canon. This is a digital-only comic that is found online in 2 places, but it's kind of dumb because one of those places you can find it only has the first half of the comic. That place is the Witcher 1 launcher. So you will go to the Witcher 1 in your Steam library and press play. It will give you 3 options. So click the bottom one about the interactive comic book, and bang, you have the first half of the Reasons of State comic. And since it's interactive, there's music, and you have to drag your mouse certain ways to progress the comic. It's kind of interesting, but there's no such thing as an interactive version for part 2, so you just have to read it in the normal digital style, which is found in the Witcher 2 game files. So once again, go to your files, go to your local disk, click on Program Files 86, click on Steam, click on Steam Apps, click on Common. Here's your list of all your games, so go to The Witcher 2. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here, but we are going to the folder Comics with an X, and there she is, the entire Reasons of State comic. Look, you might have owned that without even realizing it. This is future me coming to tell you that I forgot to mention a step. If you want access to the comic book Reasons of State and also those extra files in The Witcher 2, they don't just pop up whenever you install The Witcher 2 normally. So what you have to do is go up here and it says games. You want to click on tools as well, and then you'll scroll down to the W's where The Witcher is, and here's the normal Witcher 2 that I'm clicked on, but then there's Witcher 2 bonus content. Mine says launch, but yours will say install or something like that. Now we are finally going to finish the Sword of Destiny book, which once again, hard canon. And the last short story in here is Something More. Geralt tries to reunite with Ciri. And once you read this short story, we are done with all the short stories, and this list will now be a lot easier to get through with much less bouncing around. We'll go simply enough to the next book. Number 16, Blood of Elves. This is a book, a part of the hard canon, starting the 5-book series of The Witcher. After this, we will go to number 17, Time of Contempt. This is another book in the hard canon of The Witcher, and this is the second book in the 5-book series of The Witcher. Now, we are going to move to number 18, which is Thonebreaker, The Witcher Tales. This is a video game, a part of the CD Projekt Red canon. This cost about $5, and is the story of Queen Meve of Rivia. To do the chronology perfectly would take some complicated switching between the chapters of this game and the books. So if you want to include Thonebreaker here, then I think it's easier to just play it before or during the Baptism of Fire novel. Number 19, Baptism of Fire. This is a book, part of the canon. This is the 3rd book in the 5-book series and is my favorite book in that 5-book series. Number 20, The Tower of Swallows. This is a book in the hard canon, and this book is very Ciri-centered, and it is the 4th book of the series, and we're almost wrapped up with the books. But before we move on to the last book, I have something that's going to be very, very controversial. Number 21 is going to be the Season of Storms book, once again, part of the hard canon. This is not going to be the entire book, because we read most of it earlier. It's only going to be the interlude between chapters 14 and 15, and also the epilogue. I know that this is chronologically wrong, and technically this should be the very last item on this list. However, if the spoiler of this epilogue is not an illusion, it is indeed the character we think it is, then that has already been spoiled by the fact that we are playing a ton of games after this next book. So I think it is better to place the epilogue here to reintroduce ourselves to the lady who will become the Lady of the Lake, because her entire storyline takes place far in the future anyway, but if we follow my timeline, then the next time we see her will be her future and not her past. Obviously, if we were just doing the books, then I would put it after the Lady of the Lake book, but I really think that it fits rather nicely before the final book, because we're adding the games to this as well. Now, we're going to move on to number 22, The Lady of the Lake book, and this is, once again, hard canon. The final book, as well as the final real canon to this chronology. We are now moving on to the bulk of the games. That is going to bring us to number 23, The Witcher video game, CD Projekt Red canon. We will go ahead and take a minute here to say you will need to buy all 3 games. On Steam, however, you can probably get all the games and all the DLCs for less than $20. This will not be an extremely expensive purchase, and for the amount of content you're getting, it's totally worth it. The first video game of the trilogy is The Witcher 1, and this takes place a couple of years after The Lady of the Lake. Geralt gets amnesia, so it may feel like a bit of a regression to play this game, but all will be explained in the second game. They are remaking this game because it has a really wacky gameplay style, but it will probably be years before we see it complete, so until then, we gotta stick with it the way it is. I have played through it twice, and it has its issues, but it's not as bad as some people complain. If I do a playthrough a third time, I will add some mods to help the gameplay, like a portal, so you don't have to spend 15 minutes doing delivery quests, increase speed because there is no roach to help you out, as well as other essential mods to just improve the gameplay. And that brings us to number 24, The Witcher 1 Epilogue, a Viper Witcher fight. This is a cinematic cutscene from the CD Projekt Red canon. This will be the first of many cinematics to be a part of our chronology, and this one plays automatically at the end of The Witcher 1, so just don't skip it. But if you did skip it, or you're just skipping the entire game in your playthrough, go ahead and watch this. I have provided the link. Number 25, The New Adventures. This is a video game and is a part of The Witcher 1. There are a total of 6 new adventures in The Witcher 1, but only 2 of these were made by CDPR and also have voice acting. They are not considered canon, and they have some issues with canon, but they are told through the frame of Dandelion narrating them, so any canon issues you have can be explained by Dandelion just embellishing the story a bit. I personally like the Prince of Neutrality because it has more Kaer Morhen content, as well as Eskel, who's one of my favorite Witchers, and it explains how he got part of his iconic physical appearance. If you are sick of the Witcher 1 gameplay style, there is a mod for the Witcher 3 that lets you play the Price of Neutrality with Witcher 3 gameplay instead. But after those expansions to the original game, we are now going to move on to another cinematic trailer, number 26, Letho, Return of the Kingslayer. This is CD Projekt Red canon. This trailer plays as you load into the Witcher 2 game, so once again, just don't skip it, or watch it on YouTube before you boot up the game. Either one, it's up to you. Number 27, The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings. And this is a full video game in the CD Projekt Red canon. This is a fun game where we are introduced to the greatest character in the franchise, and it is very replayable because there are 2 separate paths you can take that lead to entirely different maps and quests. And then we'll move on to number 28, Matters of Conscience, which is a comic in the CD Projekt Red canon. It only fits your story if you chose Jorvith's path in the previous game and freed the dragon. This is found in the Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone extras folder of game files. If you went the Roach path, just don't kill the dragon and pretend it all makes sense when you read the comic, I guess. A lot of people don't like this comic because it really just explains why all the best characters from the more popular side of the Witcher 2 storyline are not in the Witcher 3. I love the Witcher Trilogy games by CD Projekt Red, but a serious issue I have is how the player choices and endings of the Witcher 1 and Witcher 2 are just completely negated by the existence of the sequential game. And just based off the trailer for the Witcher 4, it seems like they're going to have to negate a lot of player choice from the Witcher 3 to make any type of storyline work for the sequel. Anyways, I digress. This comic is only 30 pages, so if you hate it, at least it doesn't take up too much of your time. You can access this comic for free if you own The Witcher 3. Once again, go to your files, and go to your local disk, click on Program Files 86, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, and here's the list of your games, so go to The Witcher 3, then click on Hearts of Stone Extras, click on Comic, and there she is. 29, Killing Monsters. This is a comic, a part of the CD Projekt Red canon. This is a single issue comic, around 50 pages, and it can be found in the library edition of comics number 1 or the Blood and Wine extras. This comic helps set up a future trailer, which is kind of random until you remember it's the most iconic trailer of all time. It can be found once again in the comic library edition number 1 or the Blood and Wine extras. So to find it, go to Program Files 86, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, here's the list of all your games. Go to The Witcher 3, then click on Blood and Wine Extras, click on Comic, and there she is. Once again, you probably own those past 2 comics without even realizing you had access to them. Number 30, Killing Monsters, the cinematic trailer. This is CD Projekt Red canon. This is just the trailer I mentioned above. Search it up on YouTube or follow my link, because yes, these trailers are a part of the canon. Number 31, The Trail. This is another cinematic trailer in the CD Projekt Red canon. I think this plays when you start a new game in The Witcher 3, but I wanted to add it just in case. Also, be sure to pick up Yennefer's dropped crow head for her. Very important.
Bird skull in black crystal. Why do I think this is Yen's?
And then number 32, Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt video game. And this is CD Projekt Red canon. Now, you can go ahead and play through this mammoth of the game, but go ahead and ignore the DLC quests for now. There are 3 mini-comics that are all pretty bad, but they are all free, and if you have bought other items on this list, you will need to read these mini-comics as you play the game. And these mini-comics are going to be number 33, 34, and 35. 33 is Kiddo, a mini-comic in the CD Projekt Red canon. Read this after you talk to Vivaldi in Novigrad, maybe right after you take out a loan you're never going to pay back. This can be found in the Witcher 3 launcher, so I bet you've ignored this 100 times by now, but this comic has been right in front of your face this whole time. Go to Steam, Witcher 3, press play. Now, in this launcher, press the link here, Kiddo. You may need to sign in, but look, another free comic. Number 34 is a comic called Frog Kiss in the CD Projekt Red canon. During the Novigrad section, while helping Dandelion set up his new tavern, it is found in Library Edition number 3, which is the one that's yet to be released. Or here is a link you can use as well, but you have to skip through the other comic that's there. It's there's 2 comics in this one book, and the Witcher comic is the second comic, so you'll have to turn the page a couple times. And then the last mini comic is called Once Upon a Time in the Woods. You'll read this once again during the Witcher 3 playthrough, once you make it to Skellige. Maybe after you destroy a Necker nest, go ahead and read this comic. It's found in the Library Edition number 2. That is the last of the mini comics, and so complete the Witcher 3, and now is the time to let you know that it works best if Ciri becomes a Witcher and you go the Yennefer romance path. However, the Yennefer path isn't completely required because they always have a wacky relationship, but still probably best to choose Yennefer after reading the books because it will affect other items on this list as well. Now, number 36, Curse of Crows, a full-length comic in the CD Projekt Red canon. This only works if you romanced Yennefer in The Witcher 3, and Ciri must become a Witcher. You can see CDPR was already showing their favorites with the endings even a while back. This can be found in Library Edition number 1. This still works best before the DLCs because you end the main game in White Orchard, and in the comic they travel back to Novigrad, which is where Hearts of Stone will take place. So it works well directly after the ending of the game. This is a good comic to get an idea of where CD Projekt Red is going to go with their Ciri as a Witcher character. It's not my favorite comic, so that shows my excitement for the next game coming out. But this is a good one to read to just get an idea of the direction they're going to take things. Number 37, Fading Memories. This is another comic in the CD Projekt Red canon, and it can be found in Library Edition number 2. This is a weird comic to find where it belongs because Geralt is lonely and broke in the story, and he already has his Witcher 3 beard and look to him. So it reads best if Ciri didn't become a Witcher, and maybe if he went the Triss route, because it takes place in Pauvis, which is near Kavir. I think it works as sort of a recovery storyline if Geralt got either depressing ending, and he kind of went on a solo trip to revitalize himself. Once again, these comics were not built to perfectly fit into canon. They just exist to be another short story. And this is definitely one that lacks a real home, because if you play The Witcher 3, you are not going to be short of money. So just pretend you lost all your money and you need some more money or something like that. I don't know. Number 38, Hearts of Stone. This is the expansion for The Witcher 3, part of the CD Projekt Red canon. Play through this epic expansion, reunite with a lady you probably chose back in The Witcher 1, and just enjoy this epic DLC. Number 39, Of Flesh and Flame. This is a comic in the CD Projekt Red canon. This is another comic that can go anywhere after The Witcher 3, so I'm going to cram the rest of these in before Blood and Wine because Blood and Wine is sort of his retirement arc. This can be found in the Library Edition number 2. Number 40, Wild Animals, a comic in the CD Projekt Red canon. This can be found in the Library Edition number 3, the one that's not released yet, so I have not read this one. Another post-Witcher 3 story, so Reddit tells me. and pre-Blood and Wine, so I'm going to place it here. But if you have read this comic and you're confident and go somewhere else, please let me know in the comments. And now another difficult one on the list, 41, Bear and the Butterfly. This is another comic in the CDPR canon, but it has not been released yet. The first issue is being released in April 2025. So I'm putting it here on this list just to future-proof my video. So if people are watching this in a few months, they know that this comic does exist. However, we don't know exactly where it's going to go yet because it's not released. He does have his Witcher 3 beard in the comic, which does matter because in the earlier comics, he doesn't have the beard. So I assume it's going to be another comic that's post-Witcher 3, pre-Blood and Wine, but I'll just keep you updated in the comment section if we find out more information. Next, number 42, Blood and Wine, the expansion DLC in the CD Projekt Red canon. In this Blood and Wine, you must do the Oriana quest. Near the end of the game, it has you pick one of two paths, and whichever path you take, first do the quest called Blood Simple. You can still go either path after you do that quest. Just make sure you do that quest, because it ties into this next item on the list, number 43, A Night to Remember, which is a short film, kind of a cinematic trailer in the CD Projekt Red canon. And then the very last item in this mammoth of a Witcher chronology is number 44, Corvo Bianco, another comic in the CD Projekt Red canon. This will be in the library edition number 3, so it's another comic I have not read, but it is my most anticipated to read on this list. In order for it to make sense, I believe you must go with a Yennefer romance in the original Witcher 3 game. All right, so that is all of the Witcher 3 chronology that I have created for Geralt here. There are some non-canon finales that are totally optional, but I wanted to add them as well because I was sure they were going to end up in the comment section anyways. Some optional items to end this list is number 45, the CDPR 10th Anniversary of The Witcher short film tribute. It's not canon because it breaks the fourth wall, but it is a fun little watch. Definitely watch it once you're done playing through all the games. Number 46, Farewell of the White Wolf. This is a mod expansion for the Witcher 2 video game. It's an unofficial production, it's fan-made, and it features Geralt and Yennefer's wedding. I have not played through this, but I've heard great things about it from YouTube and Reddit and everything else. The problem is there is no voice acting in it, but it's a couple of hours worth of content, so it's insane whenever a mod has that much content. And then, number 47, Something Ends, Something Begins short story. This final item is the author of The Witcher, Andrzej Sapkowski, his tale featuring Geralt and Yennefer's wedding. Despite being written by Sapkowski, it is not canon. It was originally written as a wedding gift for some friends, but it's funny, and it's worth enjoying as a whimsical epilogue to Geralt's journey. And then some even more bonus content. Number 48, the Gwent mobile game. There are some fun backgrounds on characters here, and it's just fun to play on your phone, maybe while you are reading the books and stuff as a way to pass some time and get some more Witcher content in general. And wow, this might be the longest video I've ever made and the most research I've ever had to put into a video. I hope that what I'm telling you with this list is at least 90% accurate, and hopefully there are people in the comment section to help us out if I mess something up here. But let me know if you do end up undertaking this mammoth of a chronology. I will be doing it at some point in my life. Like I said, I'll probably wait a year before I do it. Maybe once we get closer to that Witcher 1 re-release, but we'll see. Keep me updated. I hope you all found this enjoyable. Thank you very much.